What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. My guest this week is Dave Sims, class of 1975, and the voice of the Seattle Mariners. We're going to talk about everything from his time coming to Bethany and then becoming the voice of the Seattle Mariners. But without further ado, I'm going to let Dave tell his story. What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. My guest this week is Dave Sims, class of 1975. Dave, thank you very much for being on the show all the way from out there in Seattle.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. Good to see you.
We're gonna do this the same way we do every week. Dave's gonna tell us everything about his time at Bethany, how he arrived here, how he found Bethany, what he did in his time here. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the comps and what Dave's doing now. So, how did you end up here in Bethany?
That's a good question. Late senior year, growing up in Philly, and late senior year, I got recruited by Temple University to play football. I'll never forget, it was like March 5, 6, 71. John Drew, he was a backs and receiver coach for Wayne Harden, who had coached Roger Stahl back at Navy. Mm-hmm. I said, Coach, why are you coming after me? He says, we run an I formation, and the coaches in your league love you. You're an I fullback. We're going to get you up to about 235 pounds. We're going to be playing West Virginia, Pitt, Penn State, yada, yada, yada. Took a visit. And who was it? Skip Singletary, who was an all Big East, that wasn't Big East, but it was an all East guard, showed me around. And I'm looking at this guy. I'm thinking, I don't know if I need to sign up for this. I don't know. I said, I like football. You have to love football to have the full commitment, giving up your body and everything. Mm-hmm. So, as I look back on it, academically, there would be some things I would do differently. But so anyway, Bethany was on the list, and I went out and looked at it, and Walt Bortz and Kenny Miller were the admissions guys, and they were super persuasive, and I figured I had to get out of town. I didn't want to stay in Philly because I figured I was going to go back to Philly and live and work and, live my whole life. So I wanted to change the scenery, and it was a little bit different.
I would say so.
A little bit different. And, I've always, for whatever reason, the places I've been one of maybe a handful of black people or less than, and that's about what I saw at Bethany. And but it's a really good player, a couple of players. Demery Brandon was fabulous running back, and I remember Phil Harvin. I remember him. I remember a couple of guys that came in with some good players. Ivan Hampton was a good guard, and Phil Harvin. Phil Harvin was a guard. He was on the football team, good players. So anyway, I come to Bethany. I figured if it didn't work, if I didn't like it, I could always just transfer back and go back, transfer out and go back to Philly. Mm-hmm. Next thing I know, 4 years went by in a blink, and, we had some laughs and learned a lot. And, I had the biggest change in life probably was after, I think it was in sophomore year. And Jim Carty, who was a legendary, mass comm guy there, he was always talking about, I got this guy an internship. I got this guy an internship. I got so-and-so an internship at the Philadelphia Inquirer. I'm like, I'm from Philly. Hello.
Hi.
This would work out really well. So, and it turned out he was tight with one of the managing editors or somebody high up, up the totem pole. Went in, had an interview March of 73. And summer of like June 4th of 73, can't believe I remember these days. I was one of 14 kids from around the country, UCLA, North Carolina, University of Rochester, Arkansas, Texas, and little Bethany was represented in this list of interns at the Philadelphia Inquirer, which at the time, I think it's still pretty highly regarded. It was really highly regarded then. And, I remember it was paired up with a kid named John Bloom, who I think is now a big-time award-winning editor somewhere in Arkansas or Texas. And we did a story on summer camps, summer sports camps, summer basketball camps, their availability, who's got the best one. That's how I met Jim Valvano. He was a coach at Bucknell at the time. So anyway, bylines, that year. So and then they invited me back the second year, and that went well. And here I am. And then at Bethany, I played football that first year, finished third in the conference in kickoff returns, one of 7 lettermen, a freshman a letter. And, as I look back on it, I should have, gone a little bit harder academically than I did that first 2 years. And then I turned it up after I was asked to take a leave of absence a couple of times and go get yourself straight. And I made up
We've all gone down that road.
Yeah. I remember going to Philadelphia Community College, picking up some, to bolster my grades and whatnot. And they let Joe Curry, bless his heart, let me back in. And, but I had a good run there. I enjoyed it, and I got to be. I worked on a radio station. I did public address announcing. I had a stretch. I forget exactly what time it was, but I was the sports editor of the Tower and sports director at the radio station simultaneously, which was pretty cool. Nice to have a monopoly on at the time, a school of 1,200, and we didn't have that many people on the comm. But anyway, I positioned myself. I felt, things worked, and whatever.
Take what's being offered.
Yeah, and nobody else wanted to do it. And I said, yeah, all right, fine, I'm in. Let's go. And that's a big reason. I've had the success that I've had. Going that second year internship at the Inquirer, when they didn't have the national program, they invited me back in sports, and so we went from there.
So I'm just looking over my notes here to make sure I cover what I wanted to cover. So the culture at Bethany, as you said, everywhere that you've gone, you've been one of few Black men at Bethany. Was there, or Black men in general, but was there ever a problem or anything, or was it always just a welcoming community?
Yeah, I would say, there weren't a whole bunch of people putting their arm around me, but there was nobody shooting at me or chasing me either. So
the myth on the West Virginia side that you're probably coming here with is you're not getting chased down the street.
Yeah, no, it was cool. And most of the guys at that time, most of the people from that were attending Bethany, so many were from the Northeast Corridor.
Mm-hmm.
I was from Philly. We had, from the Northeast Corridor, from DC up to Boston into New Hampshire and whatnot. Then everybody else was from the greater Pittsburgh area or somewhere in Ohio. And I understand it's a lot different now. It should be almost 50 years later. But
you'd hope.
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I heard. That's my impression. So
yeah,
things have worked out. I've been very fortunate. I've worked my butt off and taken advantage of every opportunity I've been given.
So you talked about the comm department a little bit. What was it that drew you to communications?
Well, I knew that's what I wanted to do. I knew I was a pretty good baseball player, and I knew that, I wasn't going to get drafted. I wasn't going to be, but somebody told me along the line, I don't know if it was in high school or something, but you can always be a sports writer. And that's when I said, well, that's a great idea. I know sports. I know, football, baseball, basketball, golf,
mm-hmm.
Hockey. I'm good. And so that was my place. That's where I should have been. And the thing was, one of the great things about Bethany was so small that, man, I could get into everything. We didn't have TV at the time, but we had radio and we had print. So it was great. It was, I threw myself into it, 100%.
And you were able to do it right away, where at a bigger school, you're waiting at least a year or two.
Easily, because I've spoken at Northwestern and Syracuse and talked to guys at Missouri and UCLA. And people at Temple. It's a dogfight.
Yeah,
it's an absolute dogfight, and that's why I caught a break. Being in a small fish in a small pond, but I was able to get hands on, and that's how that's very similar to what you hear of so many people in TV who are anchors and reporters. They start out in a town probably slightly bigger than Bethany, mm-hmm. and they get their feet wet. They make their mistakes, learn, mature, and then move up the ladder. Well, I got a chance to do that, at Bethany. And then right into major metropolitan daily, as they said in the Superman TV show. I went when I graduated. I got hooked up at the New York Daily News.
So you brought up the academics and how you weren't necessarily as strong early on.
Yeah, I should have been. I should have done a hell of a lot better than I did. But I did enough. I was so fired up about once I had the internship, and I was like, I was confident and almost cocky, almost obnoxious, because here I am working. What are you going to tell me? I'm working in a major metropolitan daily, getting a byline at 20 years old.
Yeah.
I thought my stuff was like
the top of the top.
Yeah, so there's a certain, and there's a certain arrogance that, on a very small scale that you need. You got to be very confident in yourself to do what we do.
Absolutely.
in this business. So I think that carried me a long way, even at Bethany. I mean, I certainly cultivated that, and you got to, and being an athlete, yeah, there's a certain amount of courage and guts you got to have, and if you want to do anything, you got to lay it on the line, man.
And that competitive drive never leaves you. It just, you replace it somewhere else in your life.
Absolutely, spot on.
So on that aspect of, so academics, you felt that you could have done better. What was the social life like here at Bethany in your time?
And it was I didn't have a car, which was just as well given those roads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somehow we had a vibrant, social life on a campus of 1,200 kids.
Yeah.
We partied. I mean, keggers, the whole thing, and local bands would come in, and we had a guy. The concert program. If you go back and look at the archives, the list of people that came through Bethany, it's phenomenal. Where was the first place I saw Billy Joel? The Eagle. Yes. Harry Chapin. New Riders of the Purple Sage, John B. Sebastian, and the Love and Spoonful. I mean, it was all groups who were really pretty hot and pretty hip, back in, in that 71 to 75 range. I mean, I remember seeing the Eagles there. I was like, man, these guys are good. And then I saw them again in 2005 or 6 at the Meadowlands in New Jersey, and they were still good. And I think Glenn Fry it was right before he passed, I think, in 2005, 6 when I saw him. Yeah, it was before. Yeah, it was way before he passed. And they're, one of my favorite groups. I love those guys.
So, and that was a product of Miss Nick at the time?
Oh God, yeah. She was great. And a guy named Bill Kinsilis who was at the KA house, and he was very, very into that stuff. And seriously, if you go back and look at the archives, I know before I got there, Fifth Dimension was there. I mean, a lot of big name people.
Well, I saw Boston is on the list, and I had Evelyn Del Cerro on, and
yeah, she was right behind me, I think.
Well,
what class was she?
85.
Oh, she's way behind me. Okay.
But she makes the joke on, well, I'm not sure. I've heard that rumor, but you know how the Bethany rumor mill goes. It might have been a guy from Boston.
No. Well, I don't know. Yeah, no, I understand that. But I'm telling you, I saw first class acts and legendary acts. I mean, I've seen Billy Joel at the Garden in New York.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I've seen the Eagles. Oh man, there's Yes became a huge group.
Absolutely.
Billy Joel. I mean, come on.
And for them to be here in Little Bethany.
Yeah.
And that was, I'm guessing, up at what is now the field house up there near.
I was at the field house. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was very cool. I mean, I'm thinking, if I were to see these people in Philly, it would cost them, 200, well, at that time, an arm and a leg, and have to fight, not fight my way, but, you have to go down to the Spectrum. They wouldn't be getting this on campus, but
no.
This was, it was really cool. It really was.
So I guess my only other question for this part is, was there any other extracurriculars? So you played football that first year.
I played baseball for 2, and I play at the plate, and I tagged the guy and jammed my thumb.
And that was the end of that.
Was pretty much, I bagged it, and then I went. It was interesting. I'll never forget this. Dave Sauer was the coach of the baseball team, and there was a huge, I guess, the annual MassCom dinner. Watch, I mean, come on, it's my major.
Have to go.
I went to that, and I missed a practice, and he didn't take me on a spring trip my second year. I was like, really, dude? I never forgot that. And I was getting some time. I was getting a little bit of run there on the baseball team too. So yeah, things will work out. It's getting too old and it's too long ago to even carry a grudge, but I do remember it.
It's there. It's right there.
I remember it. Yeah.
No fraternity life, no interest in.
I was with. I believe it or not, I was at the K house, and all those guys mainly were from. Again, the I-95 guys and Pittsburgh and whatnot. It was a good group. I'm still in touch with a lot of those guys now.
And was that something that you wanted to be involved with when you got here, or it just kind of that went with the group?
It just happened, a couple of guys, a guy I had competed against in Philly, and we're in the same league. He came in, and then a guy from New York, and they encouraged me. I hung out with them, and they joined with these guys, and, yada, yada, yada.
And then it goes from there.
Right.
All right. This is a good place. We're going to take a pause. about 2 minutes. I'm going to send it to another alumni, KJ Kieran Dunn with Maple Shade Outdoors. If you haven't yet, go on to Instagram. It's maple_shade.outdoors. Or while you're watching this, hit subscribe on YouTube and then pop over to his channel, Maple Shade Outdoors. They do everything outdoors, hunting, fishing. He teaches you how to do the bows and how to line up your sights and how to all the other stuff that goes into that. But this is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. I am Carlo Guadagnino. My guest this week is Dave Sims, class of 1975, and we'll be right back.
What's going on, everybody? This is Kieran Dunn, founder of Maple Shade Outdoors. You're currently watching Dingo Talk with my man Carlo. If you're anything like me and you're really enjoying this content, you should like and subscribe his page. While you're on YouTube, you should probably just head over and like and subscribe Maple Shade Outdoors. Check out our page, enjoy some videos, some outdoor content. You might as well hop on Instagram, Facebook, follow us, Maple Shade Outdoors. Now that's enough about me. I'm trying to get back and watch the rest of Dingo Talk, so I'll talk to y'all later.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. My guest this week is Dave Sims, class of 1975. We left off. Dave finished everything about his experience at Bethany, except for the one that brings us all together as Bethanians, and that is comprehensive exams. So how did the week of studying go? And then what do you remember from the week of taking the test?
You know what? My biggest takeaway, well, first of all, the pressure that, comps, and I don't have a real clear memory of the written part, but I do remember being, the oral part and sitting at a table, and I thought I nailed it. And I was really confident. And I think, and Cardi, I think, if I remember correctly, tried to be a little intimidating. I didn't back down, and right there, congratulations went out. But what was great about the comps, the orals, when I interviewed for the Mariners job here in Seattle, I'm trying to remember, I'd met with the guy who ran the marketing and broadcasting. And then I was brought into a big, typical, chairman's kind of room. I'm sitting in the middle, and there's like 7 or 8 people around the room. And I said, "Oh, I got this." Because I had done it at Bethany. I had done it at Bethany. I got this. And they're firing questions, and I'm answering. I was like, boom. And
I'm in there.
And that's the thing. And that the comfort level, when I walked into that boardroom and then saw those people sitting there, I said, I'm going to be all right. Because there's nothing, they're not going to be asking me about how to do brain surgery. And I always say it's not brain surgery. That's why I got into mass media.
Yeah.
And, it worked out well. It's just interesting that you could almost psych yourself out. It's easy to do. I got to believe probably happens to some people, it probably happens at varying degrees. But it's unique. You don't hear many schools that do it. And it sounds like it was something for a while that might have been fairly widespread, but it's still unique to Bethany, and I think that's pretty cool.
And so you get to graduation, and you said right out of graduation, you're hitting the ground running. So
yeah, I was unbelievably lucky. I graduated something like May 22nd, May 24th of 75. Like a month and a half before that, I had interviewed down at WTRF in Wheeling, and I'll never forget it. Mark Davis, I think he's since passed on. Anyway, said, I'd hire you right now, but I can't. I don't have any money. But how about I send your tape down our, we have a group of stations. And all right, fine. So I get a call one day from a dude in Peoria, Illinois. Hey, our guy just left, and I've seen your tape, and I want to hire you. I want you to be our weekend anchor. And this is like a month and a half before graduate. I'm thinking, this is great. I'm going to start my TV career. And then about 3 weeks later, I get this call from the same guy. That dude came back. You no longer have a job. I was like crushed. Well, I got over it, but for like a day or two, I was crushed. I'm thinking I was going to, talk about like you said, hit the ground landing and a smooth landing, hit it running. So anyway, I wound up getting back to the Inquirer. I want to say that was, when did I start? I worked at, we have Google now. So if you want to ask a question, how do I get my hands on such and such soda or whatever? Well, back then in the ancient days, they had something called Action Line, and people would write in or call. I think mainly write in, but some would call. And I'll never forget this one. I was in New York City. I had these two sodas I'd never heard before. How can I get them in Philly? And I start calling these consumer places, and you write about it. And that's what I did for a month. And then in September '75, I was supposed to start as the Philadelphia Inquirer sports columnist and beat writer. But prior to that, this is when diversity in newspapers was not real good. And the sports department was a freaking joke. It was like hardly anybody. It might have been 5 or 6 guys at Metropolitan Dailies. So a guy that had gone to school with the Bethany, his father was like an executive at the New York Daily News. He got and they didn't have any black guys that covered sports. They had very few black reporters. One thing led to another. I meet Dick Young, a legendary sports writer, in Philly at Joe Frazier's camp on Broad Street in Philly.
Okay.
And hit it off there, and I got an offer to work there, and then I got an offer from Chicago, and then the concrete offer came in from the Inquirer. So at one point in the middle of August of '75, I had 3, right here, right in my hands: New York, Chicago, and Philly.
Where do I want to go? Kind of.
Yeah, and my mother said, "Listen, you always wanted to work in a big media. You always wanted to be in New York City. Take this now. You don't know if it's going to be there when you're 35." So I took it at 22, and boom, that's what I did.
And then how long did it take to get, because you're going into your 14th season with the Mariners, correct?
Yeah, I'm in my 15th. Yeah, 15th year. Yeah, the old song, Long and Winding Road. I mean, I did, in a nutshell, sounds like Frank Sinatra, I've been a pauper, a piper, a pawn, and a king. I've done sports writing, sports anchoring, sports reporting, producing, talk show, play-by-play, starting with first full one was football, then baseball, then basketball, and now my 15th year with the Mariners.
And how did the show with Coach K come about?
Because of when I was covering the college basketball beat in New York, met him when he was at Army.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, then he goes on to fame and fortune at Duke. And this would have been '05. And my calendar during those days, football, basketball took up. So I was usually booked from September to the Final Four, let's say.
So just recent would have been just.
Yeah. But what happened was I didn't have anything really going on during the summertime. And there was a couple of summers I did baseball for ESPN, but that went away. So then my wife and I did media coaching for major colleges and pros, and we did that for a while. So I was at Duke, and Mike brought me down. He knew who I was and all that, and liked my work. And so the show was offered to him by XM. It was before the merger.
Mm-hmm.
And we were doing our seminar. We'd go out to eat, and his right-hand guy said, "Hey, could you got any restrictions that would keep you from doing a show?" Yada yada yada. And here we are. We just finished our 16th year together. So.
And I mean, it seemed I've listened to. I don't catch it all the time because I don't have XM, but I do catch bits and pieces, and they seem to be that you guys are almost in that friend zone of you play off of each other really well.
Oh, without a doubt. Oh, no question. And one of the things that was great, I mean, he's a great guy, and we have a lot of laughs, and he's one of the most renowned people in the history of the business. And I remember when what was it? When the Mariner job came up, I got a call from the guy who's now my boss, and I called Coach K. I said, "Hey, I got an opportunity to get a major league job. Can you sock a word in?" He says, "Done. Who do I call?" And he had somebody. Another one of his right-hand guys was a Seattle guy who knew somebody on the board. That's how the world works. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And here I am.
So what would you say the best moment so far with the Mariners? What was the best moment that you got to call?
Oh, easy. Felix's perfecto. What was it, August 15th, 2012? Yeah, that was because it was the first a perfect game in the history of the Mariners. The 23rd perfect game in the history of Major League Baseball. There hasn't been one since. A lot of guys have come close. And that year, I called 2 perfectos. I called one, and it was a happenstance. The Mariners and White Sox game on April 21st of 2012. Fox wanted to do that as the BNet game, going into it was going into Chicagoland and Seattle, Boston, and I think parts of New York, because the Yankees and Red Sox were the main game. So anyway, they come to us in the 9th inning. Yeah, perfect game by Philip Humber. And that was a thrill and a half. And then when our guy did it, Felix was at the peak of his career, and he was just dealing, man. It was unbelievable. 1-0 game over. 1-0 game over Tampa Bay, and that was the biggest moment. I mean, we've had the bummer is it's a small thing. It's a great job, great people, as you can see, a terrific ballpark, terrific city. We've not had a lot of success on the field. We haven't been to the playoffs since 2001. Never been to the World Series. That's disappointing, and hopefully we're in the process of changing that right now. But all in all, man, I mean, to be one of, what do you figure? We got 30 teams, and let's say each team has 4 broadcasters, so it's 120 guys out of a country of $250 million, and I'm one of those guys. That's not
absolutely.
Bad.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions to finish out. One is, why Division III? If you're talking to a guy that wants to come to Bethany, or a parent that's looking to come to a smaller school, why would you recommend a Division III school?
Probably because if you don't want to be overwhelmed by, and have a chance to play. I mean, not everybody, you know how much of a stud you have to be to play at the Big Ten, especially at the top level of the Big Ten, top level of the SEC. Not everybody's that good an athlete. But if you still want the college experience, you want the, athletic and academic experience, Bethany would be a good spot for you. And hopefully the biggest thing is that, hopefully the school continues to be on a rebound, and you go from there. It's the opportunity to have hands-on and have really individualized attention. That's a plus. That's a positive. So we've got to that point. I've run my questions dry for you. I just wanted to hear your story. I'm sure everybody else wanted to hear your story. I've got to the point where I have to send it to Harry Chambers with Chambers General Store. Thank you very much for taking time. I know this is a busy time of year for you. This has been the Dingo Talk Alumni Tour. I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dave Sims, class of 1975. And Harry, take it away. I almost said 2005, and I had to.
Yeah. And of course, needs no introduction. Picture of the front of the Bison Inn, but believe it or not, it was not always a bar. What do you need? This way? Oops. What all was in that building, Jack? What in it?
Well, there was a gas station, grocery store, which competed with
I think it was an A&P, wasn't it?
A&P, yes.
People don't remember the A&Ps, but that was a big national chain that doesn't exist anymore.
That was in Bethany for a short time. It didn't last long.
Weren't there one time 4 stores in Bethany, 4 grocery stores competing in Bethany?
I have no idea.
I think the college gardening plumbing shop was a store, wasn't it?
That was a pool hall and bowling alley.
Okay. There, another myth busted.
And that's down there by Hibernia, correct?
Correct. Right across the alley on this side of Hibernia.
Because we'd go down there, and for a dime we could play pool for the afternoon.
So then it became. Was the college bookstore was in there at one point?
I don't remember that.
And the post office was in there at one point, wasn't it?
No. You're talking about the one across the street.
We're talking about the Bison Inn, yeah. Don't I remember the bookstore in there? Maybe I don't.
No.
Okay.
Where Aaron.
That's okay. I remember that. I knew it was
Next
there.
door to Aaron's place.
Yeah, Aaron's Pottery Shop is
Yeah. That was a post office at one time.
Mm-hmm. So how did it become a bar? What's the story? The true story of Frank Calabrese?
Frank Calabrese was a student at took about 9 years to graduate. I hope he's not listening.
I'm going to make sure he knows. And Frank, I love you anyway. You're a member of the family, but Jack's going to tell us the truth.
A lot of successful people went to school for 6 or more years.
Absolutely. So anyway,
D.L. Wyman was dean of students and said, "You're not putting a bar in Bethany." And Frank said, "Yes, I am." And he ended up in court, I think, and got the rights to put a bar in Bethany.
but his first one wasn't there, was it? Wasn't it down the street?
It was down the street where the first apartments are, down next to the bowling alley and pool hall.
And what was it called? Was it the 21st Amendment or was it the wooden keg?
First Amendment.
First Amendment. The First Amendment?
I think First Amendment. Or Second Amendment.
Okay. And then next to it, didn't you have you built a laundromat next to it? So Bethany at one time had a bar
Well,
and a
it was
laundromat?
in there before, in a little building which was similar to the laundry, or the post office picture, and it was the city jail where students would cool off at night and
Sober up and do whatever they had to do?
and do what you had to do.
So then it burned down? What happened to that building so Frank would move up to this building?
It burned suspiciously one night.
And then, so then he acquired this from,
Well, his wife was the main supplier of the money. His wife family, Bartell, I think was her name. And mysteriously it burned to the ground one night.
so Frank then acquired the building across the street from the store and opened the bar?
I'm not sure whether he acquired it right away or was renting. I'm not sure.
Okay. And then Frank decided to leave town, and that's when the legend Bubba showed up.
Bubba showed up.
Anything you want to tell us about Bubba? Any myths you want to bust or legends you want to build?
Bubba? I don't know.
I know when he came to town, it made quite a stir because you don't bring many, 6'6", 400-pounders into town very often.
Right. Well, he played basketball at Duquesne.
Okay.
He would tell me that story while having his gin.
Bubba drank gin? I don't think that was very well known
I
around.
don't think anybody's ever accused Bubba of drinking gin.
Yeah. No, swilling gin maybe, but not drinking.
Swimming in gin, drowning in gin, one of those might be I don't know if drinking was what Bubba did.
Well, he inhaled it.
2 handfuls at a time, just going.
Did anybody ever call Bubba by his given name? How many people know what Bubba's given name was? I do too. Do you know what Bubba's given name was?
Bill.
William Reed, yeah, that's for sure.
Bill Reed.
No doubt.
You've just watched another exciting episode of Dingo Talk, recorded in the secret lair deep in the hills of Bethany, West Virginia. Let me give a shout out to my man Don over at Maple Shade Outdoor. He's got some great stuff going on over there on YouTube and Instagram. Please make sure you check him out. Also, now available as promised, we have the second edition Bethany, West Virginia Mushroom Capital of the World t-shirts and our Chambers General Store. If we don't have it, you don't need it t-shirts. Available in all sizes. So make sure you stop by the store for a t-shirt, breakfast sandwich, our sausage biscuits and gravy, and make sure to check out those daily lunch specials. Now back to you, Dingo.